Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I have a tank guide and 4 gameplays for you in the Leopard 2A4. So this is the Western Alliance Era 3 heavy tank or main battle tank, and this is reached via the Leopard 2, which is the first Era 3 Leopard main battle tank. This is the middle one, and this leads on to the Leopard 2A5, which is the pinnacle of Era 3 in this Leopard line. So in today's video we're going to go over now to Excel, have a look at the stats of the Leopard 2A4, and I'm going to be comparing to 3 other vehicles in this comparison: the M1A1 Abrams, the Challenger 1 and the Merkava Mark IIB. So the reason I've chosen all 3 of these vehicles to compare to the Leopard 2A4 is because they are all middle level Era 3 main battle tanks. So they are not the sort of entry level in Era 3 and not the pinnacle, they are slap bang in the middle. So a great comparison to see how the Leopard 2A4 holds up. And we will have a look first at what has improved from the Leopard 2, which of course, as I've just mentioned, is the first Era 3 Leopard main battle tank, and I've done a review on my channel and I'll try and link that above for you now. If you haven't watched it, then you can go and watch it, come back and see how the Leopard 2 has improved. Just a quick mention on the colour coding in terms of my review. Green is the best stat, red is the worst, and orange is somewhere in between. And in just a little bit, I'll talk you through my commander and equipment setup, how that affects the base stats of the Leopard 2A4. And as you can see, these are highlighted in yellow. Then I'm going to take you to the garage, have a look at the Armour viewer of the Leopard 2A4, and then we'll get stuck into the first of 4 gameplays where I'll try and talk you through how I like to play this vehicle and how I think it performs on the battlefield. So what has changed from the Leopard 2? Well, as you can see, you have 354 hit points, which is fantastic news, and of course this is when both vehicles are fully upgraded. That's great for taking an extra shot, maybe 2 in a battle, and keeping you in for longevity. In terms of the view range, that's the exact same as the Leopard 2 at 535 meters. In terms of the engine power, you do have 130 more engine power, which translates into a better power to weight at 28.97 compared to the Leopard 2's 27.2, and you have a better top forward speed at 78.9 kilometers an hour, slightly above the 75.6 on the Leopard 2. Unfortunately, you do lose 0.1 in terms of your kilometre an hour for your reverse speed. However, it's basically identical to the Leopard 2, and you lose 2 degrees a second on your hold reverse, keeping the same 40 degrees on your turret. So try and make sure to improve your reverse speed and your hold reverse on the Leopard 2A4, and I'll show you how I've done that when I talk you through my commander and equipment setup in just a little bit. So in terms of the guns on both of these tanks when fully upgraded, they are absolutely identical. The speed, the penetration and the damage, as well as the ammo type, are all the same. So on the Leopard 2A4, as you can see, APF SDS as your standard and premium, and heat as your third ammunition selection. Unfortunately, it doesn't have HESH, which would be lovely like on the Challenger 1 or Challenger 2. However, the first 2 rounds are pretty good, and I'll talk you through the stats in just a little bit when we're comparing to the other vehicles, but it's a very, very nice 120mm caliber gun. In terms of the gun handling, the exact same as on the Leopard 2, 2.1 seconds, but that's very nice, and when you try a gun handling focus setup, you can get that down to a very nice level. In terms of the accuracy, you have improved from 0.23 on the Leopard 2 to 0.21 on the Leopard 2A4. Unfortunately, in terms of your DPM, you have actually decreased from the Leopard 2, which is a real big shame, and this is one of the big sides to the Leopard 2A4, as we're going to see compared to the other vehicles that are at its level in Era 3. So instead of having a 6.9 second reload on the Leopard 2, you now have a 7 second reload on the Leopard 2A4, and the rest of the stats are identical: 50 rounds of ammunition, 9 degrees of gun depression and 20 degrees of gun elevation. So a little bit in terms of your mobility, the exact same gun, Slightly better accuracy, however worse DPM. Now we're going to compare the Leopard 2A4 stats to the 3 other vehicles I mentioned at the start of this vehicle. Remember, green is the best stat, red is the worst, and orange is somewhere in between. And then we'll get stuck into my commander and equipment setup. So the Leopard 2A4, as I've just mentioned, 3,950 hit points. This is better than the Abrams, and it's much better than the Challenger 1. And the only thing that beats it at this level is the Macabre Mark 2B at 4,000 hit points. But yeah, only by 50 as a big slug of hit points, and you do have a little bit of an increase in armour over the Leopard 2. I say a little bit, it's a massive difference, as we're going to see in the armour viewer in just a little bit. In terms of the view range, 535 metres, better than the Abrams, the exact same as the Macabre Mark 2B, and the Challenger 1 beats it by 10 metres, but that's nothing really to write home about. You're going to be on the front lines brawling, ramming, using your 120mm caliber gun, go and hold down and hopefully obliterating the enemy, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. In terms of your mobility, your 1630 engine power is better than the Challenger 1, much better than the Macabre Mark 2B, and the M1A1 Abrams comes out on top in terms of the engine power. However, that's not the be-all and end-all, because as you can see, you have the best-in-class power to weight and top forward speed. You are miles better in terms of your power to weight than the Macabre Mark 2B when fully upgraded, and you are better than the Abrams and Challenger 1, which means you can get up hills quite quickly, get up to your top speed quite quickly, and that's fantastic news for traversing across the battlefield. Unfortunately, as you can see, you do have pretty bad reverse speed at 33.7 kilometers an hour, which is much worse than the other vehicles in this comparison. So try and improve that with mobility equipment. The traction system will help that out. However, your 78.9 kilometers an hour top forward speed is brilliant, and it's much better than the Abrams, than the Challenger 1, and much better than the Macabre Mark 2B. So you can get up to that top speed quickly and use it to your advantage to go hold down, use your good turret armor, and also do some good ramming, because you're a very heavy vehicle indeed. In terms of your whole traverse, 32 degrees a second, so that's the worst in this comparison. Again, you're going to want to try and improve that with the mobility equipment and or your commander skills. It's not miles off something like the Challenger 1, but the Abrams and the Macabre Mark 2B beat it by a long way. And your turret traverse, 40 degrees a second, the same as the other vehicles, and this will improve to a dramatic, very good level with your gun handling skills, so don't worry about that. That will improve itself if you use gun handling skills. Next, let's talk about the guns of all of these vehicles. So the first three, the Leopard 2A4, the M1A1 Abrams and the Challenger 1, all have 120mm caliber guns, and the Macabre Mark 2B has to be different with 105mm. So definitely bear that in mind when we're talking about the stats of these vehicles. As you can see on the Leopard 2A4's 120mm caliber gun, as I've mentioned when we're comparing to the Leopard 2, you have 3 flavours of ammunition, APF SDS as your premium and your standard, and heat as your third ammunition selection. The Challenger 1 has HESH, which I think it's much better for using its lightly armoured targets to improve your DPM and your alpha damage, of course. And on the Macabre Mark 2B, that has HESH as a third ammunition selection and 80 GMs as its premium option, so I haven't included it compared to the other vehicles, but definitely bear that in mind. The Macabre Mark 2B has that ace up its sleeve. In terms of your rounds then, on your standard rounds on the Leopard 2A4, 1640 meters a second shell velocity. This isn't as good as something like the Abrams, which is the best in this comparison at 1700 meters a second, but you are better than the Challenger 1 and Macabre Mark 2B. Very good at sniping at mid to long ranges. Just remember, APF SDS rounds do lose penetration over distance, whereas heat doesn't. However, heat's very difficult to use in Era 3. Because of all the composite armour, which will absorb heat rounds and block HESH and ATGM damage. In terms on your standard rounds, 590mm of standard penetration, which is 2mm less than the M1A1 Abrams, which is the best in this comparison, so very good standard penetration, much better than the Challenger 1, which is down at 493, and you beat the Macabre Mark 2B, so good for free-to-play players, meaning that you don't have to fire an awful lot of premium. However, the premium rounds can help. 510 alpha damage on all 3 of your rounds. In terms of your premium rounds, you have the best shell velocity in this comparison at 1670 meters a second. Again, great for firing at mid to long ranges. You don't have to give too much lead at all. Your pen jumps up from 590 to 710 millimeters, which is absolutely fantastic. 30 millimeters less than the best in this comparison, the M1A1 Abrams, but miles better than the Challenger 1. And of course, the Makarov Mark 2B has 80 GMs for 800 millimeters of pen, so only 90 millimeters off the pen on those 80 GMs. So very dangerous premium rounds, kind of RB, RT, and you're going to be auto-locking and penetrating most things, which is how a lot of people play in Era 3. I recommend aiming, but it's very, very good penetration. And lastly, your heat rounds. They have the best shell velocity on any third shell in this comparison at 1,140 meters a second. They have the same penetration as your standard rounds, 590 millimeters for 510 alpha damage. So the only real reason to use these heat rounds is if you wanted to get your penetration over distance across the sort of whole way across the map, and you wanted to guarantee that 590 millimeters of pen when you hit your target. But like I said, with the lower shell velocity and the fact that there's so much composite armor in Era 3, they are largely useless. I would just carry 50-50 standard and premium if you can afford to do that, with the upcoming changes to the silver economy in the Cold War game mode, as was discussed on the last World of Tanks console stream. So in terms of this gun, it's a very nice 120mm caliber gun. You don't have the best alpha damage that goes to the M1A1 Abrams, however you got more alpha damage than the 105 on the Makarov Mark 2B and 20 damage less than the Challenger 1. Unfortunately, you don't have great third ammunition selection, but you have good penetration, good speed on your rounds, and yeah, it's a pretty decent gun. In terms of the gun handling on all of these vehicles, the best aim time goes to the Challenger 1 at 1.5 seconds. You have 2.1 seconds on the Leopard 2A4, which is the worst in this comparison. It's not the end of the world because it's still pretty good and you can get it down to a very good level indeed. However, it is a little bit disappointing. On the flip side though, you do have nice accuracy at 0.21. It's better than the Abrams, slightly worse than the Challenger 1, and the Makarov Mark 2B out there in front at 0.19 accuracy, which is absolutely insane. And here's where it gets very upsetting for the Leopard 2A4 and a massive drawback to playing this vehicle. It's the DPM. As you can see, 4,371. It's miles worse than all of the other vehicles in this comparison. Challenger 1 has nearly 5,000 DPM, leaving this thing in the dust. You have a 7-second reload, and that is the longest reload out of any of these tanks. You do not want to get into a trading sort of DPMs into other main battle tanks because you're going to get absolutely shredded. You want to sort of get on a ridge line and just pick your opportunities where you can at unsuspecting targets. Your armor is quite useful, as you're going to see in just a little bit, but it's definitely not infallible, so be wary. Other tanks do have better DPM than you do have. In terms of your ammo capacity, you have 50 rounds, 2 more than the Abrams, 6 more than the Challenger 1, and the Makarov Mark 2B out there in front with 84 rounds. You have the joint best gun depression and gun elevation at 9 degrees and 20 degrees respectively, and that's the same as the Abrams and Challenger 1, and the only thing different is the Makarov Mark 2B has 0.5 less on the gun depression, so it's definitely a usable gun. Be wary of the DPM. You have good speed, good penetration. DPM you can still make work, especially if you improve it with your commander and equipment setup. Just be wary of getting into a DPM fight because you will get taken out if the opposition player knows what they're doing. But great mobility and all round a better vehicle in my opinion than the Leopard 2. So how do I choose to set up the Leopard 2A4? Well, I want to improve the mobility, the gun handling and DPM of this vehicle. That's paramount to me. So what I have chosen to run with my equipment is the traction system to help the mobility and also the whole traverse out, advanced loader to help the DPM, and ventilation to improve everything about this vehicle by that 5%. So the DPM, the accuracy, the view range, everything like that. And in terms of my commander skills, I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, rapid aim, snapshot, run and gun, armour angling and track mechanics. So 4 gun handling skills, getting the most out of this gun. I'm going to be on the front lines with this vehicle, so armour angling to decrease the damage I receive by 5%, and track mechanic because your hull isn't the absolute best. Your side is pretty poor for a main battle tank, so you want to get your tracks on as quickly as possible. 6 sensible and leader is standard, and rapid loading to get the most out of the DPM of this vehicle. So if you do run a similar setup to me, your view range will have increased to 592 meters, meaning you can spot pretty well for yourself. But of course, there is the true vision system, so there is that. It doesn't matter too much when you're a main battle tank. In terms of the mobility, what has changed? Well, because of the traction system, top forward speed has gone up to 86.79 kilometers an hour, so you are very, very quick across the ground and great for ramming. Reverse speed has gone up. That's what I wanted to improve the most. It's gone from 33.7 to 37.07 kilometers an hour. Your hold reverse has improved to 35.2 degrees a second, and if you wanted to improve that even more, you could take off one of the commander skills and use clutch braking, and that would make it even better. And your turret reverse with those gun handling skills has gone up to 49.84 degrees a second, just shy of 50 degrees a second. It's great for snapping around at the Weasels and the Jaguar ones and all of the other light and tank destroyers that are trying to get around you and put ATGMs into your side. In terms of your gun handling and DPM, if you use the same setup, aim time is now 1.9 seconds with a 0.17 accuracy, so pinpoint accurate. DPM has improved quite dramatically to 6,146, which means I now reload one shell in 4.98 seconds. And I do use combat rations as one of my consumables alongside the large med and large repair kit. You could use something like the whole patch kit or the smoky if you're not too confident in certain positions, but I found the combat rations really does help, and you need everything you can to boost up the DPM of the Leopard 2A4. So that's it for the comparison there of the Leopard 2A4 to the M1A1 Abrams Challenger 1 and Merkava Mark 2B. Now going to head over to the garage, have a look at the armour viewer of the Leopard 2A4, and then we're going to get stuck into the first of 4 gameplays. So I'll see you over in the armour viewer in just a second. So we are now in the garage, and we're going to first have a look at the armour viewer of the Leopard 2. We're going to see what the armour was like on that vehicle, and then we can see what the armour is like on the Leopard 2A4 and whether it has improved over its predecessor. So first I want to draw your attention to the thickest part of the armour on the Leopard 2, which is the front left of the turret, 345mm, then the front right, 325mm. In terms of your upper plate, the thickest part of armour is 190mm. It's angled sort of slightly upwards, and the lower plate angled downwards, as you can see, and the lower plate also 190mm. And the side of the armour on the Leopard 2, the thickest part of the side is the front kind of half at 50mm, and unfortunately the rear half is a pretty poor 25mm. So we're going to see if that has improved on the Leopard 2A4. If we now quickly switch over to the armour viewer of the Leopard 2A4, we're going to compare those figures on the Leopard 2 to this vehicle and see if it has improved. So on the turret, the thickest part is now 470mm, so much better than the Leopard 2, which is very, very good news, as that vehicle to me was a little bit disappointing. Front right 470mm, and then the front left 455mm. The second kind of square on top of the bottom one, as you can see, the orange square, is a little bit of a weak spot because there's less armour in front of it, and you can go through that with sort of medium to high penetration, so definitely watch out for that. And you kind of have cupolas. If you're above it, you can shoot, but apart from that, if you're using 9 degrees of your gun depression, very hard to hit the cupola. So a pretty thick turret. It's angled sort of to the left and right, but it's not really angled upwards much, and very high penetration will just go through it. But if you're using the gun depression and if you're wiggling and moving on a ridgeline, you can bounce quite a few rounds, especially from entry-level Era 3 tanks and tanks that don't have the absolute best penetration, and heat rounds won't go through this very, very reliably. So if people are firing heat, get a hold down, bounce quite through a few rounds. In terms of your upper plate, the thickest part is now 360mm, as you can see, and it's angled upwards, so much better. When you're angled at kind of 40 to 45 degrees, this ricochets autocannons very well. It's composite armour, so it will absorb some ATGMs, however, it's not very reliable at doing that from my experience, but it's much better for bouncing the occasional shot. When you're coming around a corner, angling like this, and you're on the move, go sort of left to right, and hopefully you can bounce off of this section here. Your lower plate now 325mm, which is very good for a lower plate. It still will get absolutely butchered by sort of anything with medium to high penetration, but it can block autocannon rounds and very poor penetration. It's at extreme angles like this. Definitely don't shoot it like that, but if you have a shot at this with an ATGM or with any kind of round, go for this, and yeah, you will go through with pretty much anything that you're playing apart from autocannons. You have other sections here on the turret because there's different parts of the composite armour all made up of different sections. So behind the gun 250mm, behind that 240mm, so again the turret is very strong. Some more sections at 180mm. Side of the turret 160, and it's a very large turret from the side, very easy to hit. You're a very long vehicle, so definitely bear that in mind, and you don't have the full extent of gun depression over the rear, so if people are chasing you, it's sometimes best to slightly turn it to the side so you can get the gun depression over to shoot at people that are coming from the side and from your behind, because otherwise you won't be able to get your gun down, especially on tanks like the Wiesel, so that's a good tip right there. You've got these 120mm sections around that kind of viewport, but again, using your 9 degrees of gun depression, it's very hard to hit. You've got sort of sections here of spaced armour to the front left and front right, which go over the tracks at 110, doesn't really block much or anything like that in terms of ATGMs. And how is the side armour on the Leopard 2A4? Unfortunately, it's the exact same as the Leopard 2, so the front half, or slightly more than half, is 50mm, so to overmatch this section you will need a 151mm caliber gun or higher. However, this 25mm section here towards the rear, you only need a 76mm caliber gun or higher to overmatch this. So if a Leopard 2A4 side scraping, if you shoot towards the back of the vehicle, you will overmatch with a 105 with a 120mm caliber gun or higher. So that's definitely good to know. And if you are side scraping, try not to give too much of the rear of your vehicle. Try and side scrape at a steep angle and do so very quickly. Snap your shot off and get back, because people will be able to overmatch you. 20mm of sort of spaced armour on the side of the turret and sort of above the tracks on the side of this vehicle doesn't really protect against much, apart from occasionally blocking a little bit of HE damage. And yeah, apart from that, the main thing you want to know about this vehicle is get hull down on a ridgeline. Your hull is better than the Leopard 2, so you can block those auto aim shots that hit you at an extreme angle. As you can see, the upper plate is angled very well at the top portion. Lower plate very weak. Your side is weak, not great for side scraping. It's just great at getting hull down and using your 120mm caliber gun. If you're firing ATGMs against this vehicle, yeah, lower plate's easy to pen. If you're above it, anywhere, and from the side you can pretty much penetrate anywhere as well. And if you're small, get behind it, because then you can get underneath its gun depression. It can't use 9 degrees over the back, as I've mentioned, so try and avoid people doing that if you are playing this vehicle. But yeah, it really is just a ridge-lined warrior. So that's it for the armour viewer of the Leopard 2A4. Thankfully much better than the Leopard 2, but we're going to have to see how it performs in the gameplay. So we're going to jump over to the first gameplay now. So we are now into the first gameplay of today's video, and we are here in the Leopard 2A4, and we're on Vineyards in a standard battle, and we have spawned over here on the western side, and I'm going to make my way down the one line towards the sort of town or city, whatever you want to call it, and see if we can get to a position where we can try and use the 9 degrees of gun depression on a ridgeline and give some supporting fire to hopefully the view range that our teammates will give us. us in the centre of this map, and I don't usually like going towards the north on this map. I find that you can get bogged down in that area. However, most of my team has gone sort of towards the northwest, so I do have to be very careful about people coming up behind me. I'm asking for help, and I'm going to have to try and pop out now and deal with these vehicles that are beneath me. You can see here the great mobility of this vehicle. Gets up to its top speed very quickly, especially when you use the traction system to improve its top speed and hold reverse as well. We're going to go in on these vehicles now, help out our tank destroyer here, see if we can bully these Object 292s, which I believe or I think that they were in a platoon. So we've managed to track one of them using our weight here to re-track and ram this Object 292, and we have managed to take them out with the help of our AMX-40 and the tank destroyer. And yeah, we've lost a lot of hit points in that engagement. However, we managed to pick up a kill, pick up 2.3k assistance and 5.3k damage, take out a very dangerous platoon, and now we can be a little bit more careful with our hit points, and we have kind of secured anyone trying to flank us from the rear. And yeah, this thing just feels so much better to play than the Leopard 2 in my opinion, thanks to the armour. That speed is absolutely great. The DPM is a little bit of a hindrance, but this gun was also very good on the Leopard 2, so yeah, you can't really go wrong apart from the DPM. And now it's all about trying to get the last remaining bits of damage with our hit points. There's still 10 enemy tanks left on the enemy team, so I have to be a little bit careful here. However, I want to get into the fight. You can see that I use combat rations to boost up everything about this vehicle. I'm enhancing them here as we're going to get into a situation where we can hopefully go hold down. We're going to be getting vision on these tanks towards the south, and yeah, this is when you are starting to rack up those assistance numbers and damage numbers in this vehicle, and yeah, boosting your marks if that's something that you like to go for. In terms of this actual gameplay, this is still when we are not fully upgraded. You can see that I've got 3,750 hit points, which is, I believe, the last module is the turret module. So we've got the fully upgraded gun, and yeah, we just haven't got the fully upgraded turret. So even stock, this thing feels very nice, and it just seems to work a lot better than the Leopard 2 did, in my opinion, thanks to that much better turret and upper hull armour. Even the low plate armour is better. And you can see here that the DPM, whilst it's not as good as other tanks, like the Challenger 1 or the M1A1 Abrams, or especially the Merkava with its insane DPM, you can still put out rounds pretty quickly with a reload. With my setup just shy of 5 seconds, I think it's 4.98 seconds. And if you're careful about what engagements you get into, and you engage tanks that are otherwise occupied fighting other tanks, you can do pretty well in this vehicle. Just don't get into a fight where yeah, you're fighting someone with better DPM and you're just trading 1 for 1 in a situation, because you won't go it won't go very well for you. You've got to pick on targets that are occupied, pick on targets that aren't looking at you, or otherwise that are at mid to long ranges, and you'll hold down and you can sort of fall back in between each one of your shells. So we managed to help that T-72BU take out that Leopard 2A4 there, which we'll be getting to when we ground through this vehicle. And yeah, that was a bit of a rout there. We managed to pick up 8.8k direct damage, a lot of assistance. I think it's 3.3k assistance, or 3.8k assistance. Nice profit with or without a premium account. That's only a first class, and that's still when we didn't have the fully upgraded turret, finishing second on our team, behind of course a Wiesel tow, because why wouldn't that finish first? So that's it for the first gameplay there, only 4 minutes 13 seconds. We're now going to head on into the second gameplay. So we are now on Fisherman's Bay in the Leopard 2A4 in the second gameplay of today's video. We have spawned in the north in a standard battle, and of course on Fisherman's Bay there's really only one place to use a tank like the Leopard 2A4. It's on this centre ridge on the kind of E and F lines, and we're going to try and use the vision that hopefully our Wiesel tows are going to give us. And you can see there that the view range is good enough for us to be able to spot that T-72B. Got to be a little bit careful because we don't know what's hiding in the back. and we're just going to bide our time and hopefully pick apart the enemy on this ridge. A lot of the enemy are spotted towards the southwest, so going to use that knowledge later on to hopefully maybe get underneath their gun line. If we can do that, then we could also get some good shots and some juicy assistance. But for now, there are some main battle tanks in the distance, just trying to snipe at them. We finally managed to hit a tank there. We hit that T-72B. We bounced our second round there. And yeah, even though the DPM, like I said in the last gameplay, isn't as good as some of the other mid-level Era 3 main battle tanks, when you're firing at every 4.98 seconds, you still feel constantly engaged in the battle. You just have to be a little bit careful about those slightly better tanks with better DPM. You can see there the accuracy and the aim time, absolutely fantastic. This 120mm caliber gun is absolutely brilliant. If you wanted to use something like kind of, is it the Deadeye skill that can improve the critical hits, that could be very, very useful. You can tweak my setup to your liking. It's just a recommendation, and that's how I played this tank when I was grinding it. Unfortunately there we hit the tracks of the thumper and don't pen. You can see I've gone full premium noob for this particular gameplay. When I started playing it, I carried 25 rounds of standard, 25 rounds of premium. I have a lot of silver, so I can afford to use the premium rounds. And yeah, the disparity between the standard and premium rounds on a lot of these Era 3 main battle tanks is just so staggering that no wonder so many people are just flinging around the premium. And especially when there are tanks on enemy teams like the 477A, where you're going to be struggling to penetrate it anyway, even with your premium. Yeah, you might as well give yourself the best chance of going through your enemies. Now we're trying to use this 9 degrees of gun depression, have to expose slightly more of our vehicle, but we have improved our reverse speed with the traction system, so we're managing to get off this ridgeline quite well, and we're going to see whether we can block any damage as these tanks are coming after us from the north. I'm trying to defend our capture circle. All of our team are in the south, going towards the enemy's base, but if I can hold them off here for long enough, we should be able to Cap or our friendly team should be able to realise, hey, all of the other tanks are in the north, maybe we should reposition ourselves. We're going against this Leclerc here, very, very dangerous tank. We picked up 4.6k damage, and I'm just being, or trying to be, as patient as possible. I'm not going to go all in on a tank now because I'll just get ripped to shreds. And of course you do have to be very careful in Era 3, or any Cold War anyway, of tanks just coming after you, YOLOing in, especially platoons like this Thumper's coming in after us. So we're going to use the reverse speed. We're going to try and get as many rounds in as possible. We're just going to go for the ram there, which puts him down to one shot. And yeah, we managed to absorb an 80 GM from the MBT-70, which is fantastic news. And I don't think that's something the Leopard 2 would have been able to do. It's definitely something that the Leopard 2A4 and 2A5 can do. Yeah, the Leopard 2 struggles a little bit in my opinion. I didn't really enjoy it too bad. The gun makes it bearable. But yeah, the Leopard 2A5 looks like it's going to be a fantastic machine to work towards. But yeah, as you can see, when you start to get flanked by enemies and they get your side, those weak side plates of 50 and 25 towards the rear, you can struggle. Absorbing another 80 GM there against that MBT-70, which allows us to get our final shell of the round there. We managed to pick up 8.7k direct damage, blocking 1.1k, and now it's just a case of our last remaining 7 tanks taking out the enemy, and we can watch them try and do that before we have a look at the end result. So we have a tank destroyer in the centre, going after 2 main battle tanks, the WoT, which of course has been resold on Boxing Day since I actually had this gameplay last year, so yeah, it's like 10 aside at the moment. I have to admit, I've been playing a bit myself, just to joining on the yeah, on the fun. I guess it's fun. It's fun when you're playing the WoT, not very fun when you are coming up against them. Our T-72B takes out the MBT-70, and our WoT puts a very, very lowly 59 damage into the T-72B there. Our friendly T-72B comes in, rams, tracks the enemy T-72B, gets taken out himself, and at this point I was starting to worry that we were actually going to lose this from the position we are in. However, we do have a T-72BM on nearly full health, who alongside the M1A2, manages to take down this gameplay. So another victory in the Leopard 2A4. We actually finished MVP even though we died pretty early on. Again, even with the premium rounds, a profit with or without a premium account, 1397 base XP, 3 kills, 8.7 direct damage, 23 direct hits, and 1100 blocks. So that's it for that game there on Fisherman's Bay. We're now going to head on into the third gameplay of today's video. So we are now on Kasserine in the Leopard 2A4. We are again in a standard battle and we've spawned in the northwest. So I'm going to make my way towards the centre of the map, try and use the ridge lines, try and hide our lower play and our upper hull, see if we can bounce some shots off our turret and put some shots down range. Again, we are with 3,750 hit points, which means that we still do not have the upgraded turret in this particular gameplay, and we're still going to have a pretty decent result, showing you that the grind is pretty easy. If you're used to main battle tanks, you're going to get along just fine with the Leopard 2A4. Yeah, you only really have to worry about exposing your sides and of course getting into those DPM fights. Apart from that, you are absolutely fantastic. Good at ramming, good at bouncing things off your turret, the occasional absorption of an ATGM. You have good enough shell velocity and penetration, and if you're careful about picking your targets, you should do pretty well. Make sure to pick targets that are occupied by other tanks. Go in kind of swarms of enemy teams. Don't get sort of on your own and flanked from different positions. And yeah, just be maybe slightly more passive than you would be in one of the top level Era 3 main battle tanks, but you've got to still be confident. And yeah, like I said in the last two gameplays, it is better, in my opinion, than the Leopard 2, which is good news, as it should be, as the mid-level Era 3 Leopard main battle tank in this line. So we picked up only one shot of damage so far. We're behind by one kill here on Kasserine, and we're going to be making our way over towards these tanks here in the G6 position. I'm going to go right over this ridge, full send it into this M1A2, and we are joined by our teammates here, are also doing some nice fun ramming work here. We managed to pick up the kill there on the M1A2. This Macarthur Mark 1 is getting swarmed, so we're going to join in, try and make the most of our hit points there, ramming the Macarthur. He gets taken out by the Challenger 2. We're still down by that one tank, so we're going to reverse up here, try and get some shots into this Leopard 2A5. I'm not going to reverse up the whole way and get my gun behind the tank, because again, you can't use the full extent of the 9 degrees of gun depression over the rear of this vehicle. And now we're going to go back and defend our base, as it is massively under threat. So thankfully we have improved our mobility with the traction system. You could of course use the advanced powertrain as well and take out either the loader or take out the vents like I run on this vehicle, probably the vents for the advanced powertrain, giving you that extra boost, but I feel like the vents just help out the DPM and everything about this vehicle to make it really nice. We're going to come in from the west of our own base and hopefully get some resets and allow some of our teammates to catch up. We are spotted, which is annoying because they're going to know I'm coming in from this location, but we're going to try and get as hull down as possible. Unfortunately, we gave too much of our upper plate there, and that's what happens when you come up against a thumper with fantastic penetration. Fortunately, our teammate is more competent than us and actually manages to get a reset, so we're going to do another avenue of attack around the right of this rock. Now this T-72B is getting shot from the front and from the rear, and we're whiffing some shots here, not quite sure what's going on, probably just my really poor aim. So, you know, when all else fails, just do an auto aim, and with the great shell velocity, it is just going to go in anyway. Unfortunately, it looks like our main battle tank down there is going to be getting taken out. I was thinking about just going in and trying to help that Challenger 2 out. However, it would have meant death for us. So I'm going to wait here on this rock with our main battle tank to our left. Try and get as many shots in on these tanks that are coming after us as possible. And the longer we hold out here, is the more chance that we have of our friendly tanks in that sort of canyon bit there coming to help us. We block an MBT-70 with its poor penetration, and if I was a Leopard 2, probably would have taken 700 odd damage there. However, the Leopard 2A4 manages to block. We set him on fire twice, and as he circled round this rock, yeah, we've taken him from nearly full health and we've got the kill. And now we can come round and see if we can get some shots into this T72BU. Leopard 2A5, who we aspire to be, is doing fantastic work on a lot of hit points. So we're going to go forward now, round the T72BU, put one shot through his upper hull, and now we are in the ascendancy in this battle. A quick snapshot there into that T72BU, and we're just shy of 10k damage. One main battle tank on the enemy team left, and there are 5 of us. Unfortunately, we are behind our friendly, so we don't manage to get the last kill. However, we still have a very nice game there with the stock turret, I believe, with first class mastery. We're top on our team. Good profit with a premium account, slightly less without because we fired a lot of premium rounds at the end there. 4 kills, 9.9k direct damage, 1727 assistance and 780 blocked in a battle that lasted 5 minutes and 1 second. So that's it for the third gameplay. Let's head on into the fourth and final replay of today's video. So we are on Ruinberg in the fourth and final gameplay of today's video. We're here in the Leopard 2A4. We spawned in the north, and Ruinberg isn't really one of my favourite maps. I don't usually like going into the city in Cold War. It just feels like an absolute cluster, you know what. So we're going to head to the mid-ridge along the E line, see if we can put some shots down the sort of E and F lines into the centre, and also shoot down towards the south, and we can hopefully get some quick shots now at tanks that are making their way into position, trying to sneakily get down into the centre of the city through the kind of shortcut. And we do have some opportunities for fire here. You do have to be very careful in this field on Ruinberg about enemy tank destroyers like the WoT coming over the ridge and just absolutely swarming you. We don't really have too much support. We have a tank destroyer that's gone all the way in towards the south. I'm guessing that will be a WoT, and we will have a main battle tank and another light tank behind us, so got to be a little bit careful. We've got the Leopard 2 to our left who is taking fire, and our WoT there is getting absolutely obliterated in the distance. We're going to sit here on this ridge for as long as we feel like we can hold off, and if we feel like we're just going to be absolutely overrun, we are going to have to try and get out of dodge, and I think I've made that decision now. Unfortunately, I don't like leaving my team when they are sort of outnumbered. However, sometimes you just have to do it, because otherwise you're going to be losing the battle and you're going to be having a poor result as well yourself. There's no point me sticking around there and getting overrun. I'd be better off coming down here into the centre, causing a bit of a distraction and having an extra gun here, because as you can see we are now getting flanked from the centre. So I'm going to use the great mobility of this vehicle to come around here where this 292 is, and hopefully I'm safe for a little bit so I can take stock, and then we can put some rounds in on this Challenger 1, trying to get around this 292 who's doing some great work there. I'm going to go forward. Hopefully the Challenger 1 fires at me, but he doesn't. We take him out, and now we're going to try and put some shots into this 292. He is tracked. We put one there, which we retrack him and damage his fuel tank, and we are taking some fire from straight ahead of us, so got to bear that in mind, but also got to try and get the shots out, because if we don't, we're just going to be outnumbered in the city as well. It's a pretty even game. Unfortunately, we do lose our friendly 292, and now it's going to be a pretty interesting fight. We're fighting a very, very dangerous main battle tank and also a tank destroyer in the form of the Thumper. We're going to just try and put our DPM to work here against this Thumper, try and get him to bounce off of our turret or upper plate. Putting some shots there underneath his turret ring. He manages to bounce off of our turret, showing you that the turret armor is pretty good. And now in these situations it's all about trying to get your rounds out, trying to pick your weak spots as best you can, move in, trying to make your armor profile as hard for the enemy to hit as possible. Again, the Thumper whiffs his shot, what it looks like, into our track there, and the more you kind of move around angle, use things like dead rocks to your advantage, the better chance you do have of doing what we did there and got out of a pretty hairy situation. Now we're going to be going to town on these two tanks. Challenger 1 is left. We're down by 2 tanks. We're getting hit from the rear, so I'm going to reverse up round and see if we can fight this Leopard 2. We've bounced even more damage from this Leopard 2. We're down to 24 rounds of ammunition, trying to keep the front of our tank to our enemy at all times because of the weak side armour, and that was one of the reasons why I didn't really want to go to the city in the first place, because you can't really side scrape around corners, and as soon as you give them the side you get overmatched. But we managed to take out the Leopard 2 there, and now we are up by a ratio of 2 to 1. It's 6 friendly tanks versus 3 enemy tanks, and that was a very quick engagement there. Lots and lots of action in a short space of time. We managed to go over 10k damage there. We got 3 kills and we blocked 3.1k damage, and it's just something the Leopard 2 couldn't do, which is why this is so much of an easier grind. You just have to be wary of that DPM of the side armour, and yeah, you'll really like the Leopard 2A4. It's a pretty nice line altogether. Probably the Leopard 2 has been my least favourite so far in my opinion, just because of the meta of Era 3. So that's our final shot there of the game. We managed to actually take out a pretty good victory there from what looked like a very bad situation, and our choice to return back to the town paid off with a high caliber Confederate and first class. Top of our team, 1582 base XP, 3 kills, 12.8k direct damage, 91 assistance and 3.1k blocked in 4 minutes and 45 seconds. That shows you that DPM isn't everything in Cold War, but you know, it does help, so just watch out for that with the Leopard 2A4. But that's it for today's video. I hope you found it entertaining and or informative, or hopefully both. And yeah, until next time, I will see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.